I was terrorized by my creepy coworker who would stare at me through the office window, and the HR department refused to take it seriously. So I took matters into my own hands. I still remember the day I met my creepy coworker like it was yesterday. He walked into the office with an air of confidence, his piercing gaze scanning the room as if searching for something or someone. I tried to brush it off as mere curiosity, but as he introduced himself and started working across from me, I couldn't shake off the feeling that he was watching me. At first, it was just a glance here and there, a fleeting look that would linger for a fraction of a second before he'd quickly look away. But as the days went by, those glances turned into prolonged stares. He'd sit at his desk, his eyes fixed on me like I was some sort of fascination. It made my skin crawl. I tried to ignore it, to focus on my work and pretend like everything was normal. But it was hard to concentrate when you felt like you were being dissected under a microscope. I'd catch him staring at me during meetings, his eyes boring into my soul like he could see right through me. It was unnerving, to say the least. One day, he came over to introduce himself properly. His name was Alex, and he seemed friendly enough, until he made a comment that sent shivers down my spine. "You're worth getting in trouble for." I forced a laugh and brushed it off as a joke, but deep down, I knew it wasn't funny at all. I started avoiding him as much as possible, taking longer routes to the break room or bathroom just so I wouldn't have to walk past his desk. But no matter how hard I tried to avoid him, I couldn't shake off the feeling that he was always watching me. It got to the point where I started questioning my own sanity. Was I being paranoid? Was I overreacting? But every time I looked up from my screen or caught him staring at me in passing, that same uneasy feeling would wash over me. I knew I had to do something about it. So I decided to take matters into my own hands and report him to HR. I walked into HR with a mix of anxiety and determination. Finally, someone would listen to me and take action against Alex's creepy behavior. But what happened next left me feeling frustrated and disillusioned. The HR representative listened attentively as I recounted every incident, every stare-down contest we'd had across our office's windows. But her expression remained neutral throughout our conversation. When I finished speaking, she nodded sympathetically, but didn't seem particularly concerned. "I'll talk to Alex about this," she said vaguely. "But without concrete evidence or witnesses coming forward, there's not much we can do." Concrete evidence? Witnesses? What did they expect? For Alex to confess his undying love for me in front of an audience? It felt like they weren't taking my concerns seriously because they didn't want to rock the boat or deal with potential drama. Over the next few weeks, nothing changed. Alex continued staring at me with an unnerving intensity whenever we crossed paths in the office hallways or during meetings. It got so bad that even our colleagues started noticing. Whispers began circulating about how Alex had a thing for me. But whenever I brought it up again with HR or management, they'd brush it off with platitudes about trying harder or being more understanding, as if being understanding would magically make Alex stop ogling me. It took one particularly disturbing incident, catching him rubbing himself while staring at me through our office window, for them finally take notice again. This time around, I was determined to take matters into my own hands. I gathered all the evidence I could, screenshots of our conversations, dates and times of each incident, even a recording of him making an inappropriate comment during a meeting. I presented it all to HR, demanding they take action. But even with concrete evidence, they still dragged their feet. They told me they needed to investigate further, and that it would take some time to resolve the issue. Time? Time was exactly what I didn't have. Every day I spent in that office with Alex felt like an eternity. That's when I decided to take a drastic measure. I would pretend to befriend him, gain his trust, and gather more evidence from the inside. It was a risky move, but I was desperate. I started by being friendly and approachable around him. We'd chat about work-related topics or grab lunch together. He seemed thrilled to have me as a friend, and his stares became less frequent. Or so I thought. One evening, he invited me over for dinner at his place under the guise of team building. My heart sank as I accepted the invitation. What had I gotten myself into? As we sat down for dinner, he poured us each a glass of wine and sat close enough that our legs touched. He whispered sweet nothings in my ear and tried to kiss me. That's when I knew it was time for Plan B. I excused myself under the pretense of getting more wine from the kitchen and slipped something into his drink while he wasn't looking. A few minutes later, he started slurring his words and struggling to stay awake. With him incapacitated on the couch, I snuck into his bedroom looking for evidence of his obsession with me. What I found made my blood run cold. Photos of us together taken without my knowledge, notes about our conversations scribbled on sticky notes. It was like walking into a stalker's lair. I took pictures of everything as proof and left before he woke up again. The next morning, armed with concrete evidence this time around, I marched into HR, determined to finally get justice. I presented them with the new evidence, and this time, they couldn't ignore it. The look on their faces said it all: shock, disgust, and a hint of embarrassment that they hadn't taken my concerns seriously earlier. Within hours, Alex was called into the office and fired on the spot. The company issued a statement condemning his behavior and promising to take harassment allegations more seriously in the future. But even with Alex gone, the experience left me shaken. I couldn't shake off the feeling of vulnerability, of being watched and objectified. It took weeks of therapy and support from loved ones to begin rebuilding my confidence. As I looked around the office, I realized that I wasn't alone. There were others who had suffered in silence, afraid to speak up for fear of retaliation or being dismissed. That's when I knew I had to do something more. I started advocating for better workplace harassment policies and training for employees. I shared my story with anyone who would listen, hoping to raise awareness about the importance of creating a safe and respectful work environment. It wasn't easy. There were still those who doubted me or downplayed my experience. But slowly, things began to change. Our company implemented new procedures for reporting and addressing harassment claims.